Alright guys, so just a quick video here on the differences between the iFlight Chimera and the Flywoo Explorer LR. I know that I'm going to get a lot of questions about this, so I figure I might as well just get sort of this topic out of the way at the beginning. I will have a full review video minus these topics in a separate video on the Chimera4 with a lot more flight footage. But I just want to show you both of these side by side in the same video so you guys can sort of do your own comparison. I know that this model here, the Explorer LR, has been very popular and very hard to find, and Flywoo has had some trouble meeting demand. So I think that is why we have models now from iFlight and also from Gep-RC. Probably going to see one from Beta FPV, I think, pretty soon as well in this 4-inch class. So the biggest difference here, as you can probably tell, is the geometry of the frame. You have a dead cat style here for the Explorer LR with the arms in the back a little bit closer together and further back, and then the front arms also further back but spread further apart so that you don't get the props in the FPV feed. Whereas on the Chimera, it's a true X frame, and so you will get props in your video feed, your FPV feed. Although if you're running a GoPro Lite or something up here on top, like an HD camera, depending upon your camera angle, you're probably not going to see props in view with this sort of frame geometry. And the sort of the pros and cons, the differences between the frame geometry is that the X-style frame is more stable in flight, easier to tune, and handles windy conditions better than the dead cat style. And so it's sort of a trade-off between having props in your FPV feed versus not having them, and the sort of flight characteristics. Now, the other difference is the way the frame is constructed. So you can see the Explorer LR has a sort of a separated arm design, so you can replace broken arms in this case, but they're thinner and not as thick, so it's overall lighter, whereas the Chimera is a unibody X-style frame here from a single piece of carbon, and it's thicker. It's 4 millimeters thick, so it's quite a bit heavier overall. Now, if you prefer the dead cat style, iFlight does offer a dead cat frame conversion kit that you can order with your Chimera4 bind and fly. So they come like this. They don't sell them in this configuration, but you can buy this bottom plate, top plate combo to replace, and so you have to swap all the parts out yourself. If you prefer the dead cat style of frame, you can move all the parts over to this if you want. I think it's only like $15 or $20 more for this. So if you really like the dead cat style but would prefer it from iFlight, you can just order the Chimera4 in the normal X style, and then just order the extra dead cat style frame conversion and then move the parts over yourself. All right, moving on to some additional differences. Obviously, they both have the Vista system in them. This is the DJI camera. Now, these are really hard to find right now, probably till end of November. And then they're probably only shipping the Caddx Nebula version for the Chimera right now. And then your only option on the Flywoo side is probably to order the non-DJI version or the non-FPV version. So it basically just comes with the motors and stack, no FPV system, no Vista, and no camera. You could do that if you want to get the Explorer LR and you want to get it quickly. So the motors are pretty similar. 1404 motors on the iFlight side here, Zing. These are the 3000 kV, so they come in two different KVs. This is the cruiser, quote-unquote cruiser version for longer flights and more efficiency, so lower kV, 3000 kV. If you want more performance, a little bit more freestyle capability, then go for the 3800 kV motor. That's going to give you a little bit more power, but less efficiency and shorter flight times, but more acro ability. And then the Flywoo only comes in the, I think this is a 2750 kV motor. Yeah, it's a 2750 kV motor, so it's even a lower kV than this one. So in terms of efficiency, you probably get more efficiency out of the 2750 versus the 3000 kV motors between the two different models. Now the flight stacks here are again another big difference. So on the Flywoo Explorer, you have the 16 by 16 stack here. So it's a 16 amp 400 ESC and F4 flight controller. And so these are, I guess, in terms of like performance and what you want to get out of a cruising quad, it's sufficient enough. Now there's issues with the OSD because there's not enough UARTs, in which you have to, in this case, either make some hardware changes or you have to revert back to Betaflight 4.1.1. I have a video explaining how to do that. I'll put a card in the corner, link in the video description if you want to see how to fix that bug. But that's a bug because one of the UARTs being used for the Vista UART control is sent over soft serial because there's only 2 hard UARTs on this smaller stack. Now on the iFlight, they don't have that problem because they're using their F4 flight controller that has, I think, 4 or 5 hard UARTs on there. So yeah, everything is hardwired. There's no soft serial. You know, GPS, the Vista, everything is all hardwired. So you're not going to have that issue with the OSD flickering or disappearing on you. And let's see, I think that's in terms of all the differences. They both have GPS. The GPS units are a little bit different on the two here. In terms of satellite locks, it seems about the same. I have the Crossfire on both of these. The Crossfire module with the Crossfire antennas on the back on the Chimera, but it's on the front on the Flywoo. I actually prefer the antenna on the front on my builds, but you know, some people say back or front doesn't really matter a whole lot. But I think that if you're flying further away like this, you can see the antenna is still visible, and as you turn, it's still visible here when you go back towards you. But when you're going away from you, it's fine. On the Chimera, antennas are still visible, but then you come back, the quad gets kind of in the way of the antenna here when you're going back towards you. So that could have some effects on your range for Crossfire. And then the 2 antennas here in the back, they're extended antennas that have micro FL connectors that go into these TPU ports that go into the Vista. 2 obviously different brands. This is their Flywoo brand over here, and this is an iFlight branded antenna. And the reason they're extended like this, I think it's about 15 centimeters here, is to keep the active element away from the carbon and the motors and electronics, so you get clear video going back to your quad, or going back to your goggles. Anyway, so that's pretty much it for the major differences. I think the Explorer here is using GemFan props. You get GemFan, the same GemFan Hurricane props on the Chimera, but they also offer the iFlight branded Nazgul 4030 props, which is what I used in the review. So in terms of like the way it feels, everything's pretty similar. The prop doesn't look a whole lot different, as you can see. Both 4-inch props, bi-blade, you know, 1404 motors, so yeah, it doesn't really feel all that different. Anyway, I'll have more details on all that in the Chimera 4 video coming up later. I just wanted to answer questions on the differences between these 2 models. I don't have the GFRC Baby Crocodile yet, but I can tell you that, again, it's going to be fairly similar to these models here. They did make some different choices in terms of the way they designed their stack. I think in the middle here, I think they have an all-in-one board in the bottom and the Vista on top, so their sort of CG and the weight distribution is a little bit different on that model. But I don't have it yet. I've only seen photos of it, so that'll be a sort of an overall roundup comparison. It'll probably be coming up down the road, so stay tuned for that video, and I will have a full review video on the Chimera 4 coming up pretty soon.